If you think the internet has changed your life, then think again, because IoT will change it all over again. This is one of the most famous quotes about IoT. People who have worked with me so far, they know that I started my career in the sensor industry and then I became a software engineer and a cloud architect. And that's also why I'm very interested in all kinds of tech trends in the cloud and also in the IoT industry. And that's also why I recently bought this little bad boy, the Bosch XDK, which can make any device in the world an IoT device. It comes with 8 sensors and you can also extend it with your own sensors, and then you can stream your sensor data and your services to any kind of application or into the cloud. I also stumbled over this little device because I am deeply interested and, disclaimer, also invested in IOTA. And IOTA is a cryptocurrency that enables a machine-to-machine economy where you can sell your services and sensor data on the IOTA marketplace. But I don't want to talk about the ideas that I have with IOTA and IoT. I just want to share a little proof of concept that I have built to connect the Bosch XDK to the SAP business application. And in this case, the Bosch XDK will deliver the level of a bin or container that is somewhere in a community, and the SAP business application will monitor the level of this bin and container and will then trigger an event. In my case, it will be a self-driving toy car that will then approach to the bin or container. So to say, it's the hello world of the Bosch XDK and SAP. Let's start from my GitHub account and follow the link to the Bosch XDK repository. There you will find an explanation about the Bosch development kit in general and about our project, how to connect the Bosch XDK to an SAP business application. Here you will also find a link to the Bosch developer portal. There you will find more details about the XDK than I could provide. There's also a download section where you can download the XDK workbench for whatever kind of machine you're working on. But before we download and install the workbench, let's have a look into the source code. And please notice that in the header file you have a license agreement, so you are allowed to modify the coding, add your own coding and share it as long as you keep this license agreement in the header file. Here you need to provide your Wi-Fi details to connect to your local network. And here you need to provide a host name and a port of the server that is listening to your service. So let's have a look at the workbench. Here in the XDK, you can create your own project by following File, New Project. And then you can choose whatever kind of project you want to work on. I work on a C++ project in here. And then you can use one of the predefined example projects. I use the HTTP example client and modified it and added my own coding. So at the end, I have an appliance that frequently shows me the state of the light sensor. If it's covered, it comes back with a true. If not, it comes back with a false. And here you see my coding. I have entered my host IP address here and the port number. And from here you can then start the XDK. You can see the sensor is successfully connected to the Wi-Fi network. And it is frequently sending HTTP requests, but it's coming back with an error because there's no server listening so far. So we will start one. Let's listen on port number 4004. And we are expecting to get back a false because the light sensor is not covered. And here we go. And now we are going to do the same, but before we cover the light sensor. And we get back a true. And now we combine both the Bosch XDK sensor data with the SAP business application. Therefore, we go back once again on my GitHub account and follow the link to the SAP UI5 Community Manager repository. There we find the coding, and here you can clone all my sources. and you will also find a link to a blog post that I have shared with the SAP community, and there I explained how to create a business application from scratch and also making use of a OData service. You can follow this explanation and do everything on your own, or you could just clone my code as already mentioned and install it on your own local machine. And I have prepared everything so far. I just run my server here. And here we go. You already see we are receiving here the state of the light sensor. And we are going to localhost 4004 and open up the business application. And then we see we are already connected with the OData service, and we are getting back frequently the information from our sensor. Our sensor is representing here bucket ID 101, and as it is not covered, it is coming back with a false, what means level is empty here. And as soon as I cover the sensor, the level is full. Uncovered, empty, and covered, full. As we have now connected the Bosch XDK to the SAP application, we are going to the final step. That means we are going to trigger an event. In my case, it will be the self-driving toy car. And therefore, let's have a look into the SAP application. There on the server code, I have added a REST call, and in case I will get back a true from my Bosch sensor, then I will send this REST call to this IP address and this port number. And this IP belongs to a Raspberry Pi that is mounted to my self-driving car and that is controlling my self-driving car. So I will now go on the Raspberry Pi via VNC viewer, and here you see a couple of Python scripts that come with the car, and I am using this port listener that I have written on my own, and this will just wait for a REST call and then trigger a couple of OS commands. So let's start the listener. Here you see the terminal of my SAP application on my local machine, and this is a terminal of the Raspberry Pi on the self-driving toy car. And we start the application. Here we go, and as soon as we are receiving a true, we can see it here in the terminal of the Raspberry Pi, and this will now trigger the self-driving toy car. Here we are in our little toy story, don't mind the scale. And here we place our sensor on the bottom of our container. And now we fill the container with some good Costa Rican coffee and cover the sensor. And we monitor it on the SAP business application. And the self-driving toy car will be triggered. Here we go. And it's as simple as that. Even when this was only a little showcase, you see what is possible in a deeply connected world with all kinds of autonomous acting machines. And our limits are only set by our own creativity. So it's up to you to create your own showcase.